Welcome to the Militia gaming community. I'm Trigger and I'm on a quest to find the best car in every single tier in Need for Speed Unbound. Let's go! Real quick before I get into the video, just know that all of the builds in this video were submitted by you guys, the community, over on the website militiagamingco.com. Go to builds, scroll to the bottom, you can submit all of your builds there. So go submit your builds if you want a chance to be featured in a video like this. Alright, so I had a ton of fun trying your builds. I'm super thankful that you guys took the time to send them in. For this week, I actually went after the A tier builds only, and I was pleasantly surprised by a few of these. So I'll go through the 5 different builds that I'm going to give you today, and I'm going to give you some feedback on what I liked and what I didn't like about these builds, and maybe a few suggestions on how you can tweak it to improve it. Alright, let's get into the first build. This one is a Lotus Exige build by Matty Ice. It's super fast off the line and it corners very well. It can slip and drift a little bit by mistake though if you're not careful with the throttle, but if you are careful with the throttle and you're good with the corners, it's an absolute beast of a build. I didn't come even close to losing a single race in online play. It was very impressive. I really like this build by Matty Ice. Alright, moving on to the second build. This is another Exige build coming to you from our Whitney74 and Nikki's Sus. Again, really fast off the line. I think that's just a characteristic of the Exige itself. It corners okay, but it does have a problem with the turning radius. This issue actually could be fixed with a more grippy setup. I didn't lose any races with this particular build, but it was a little bit harder to drive than the other Exige builds. Alright, the third build of the video is another Exige build coming to you from Sigma Chad. And I don't know if I'm saying your name right, I apologize, but that's what I've got. This one, once again, is very fast off the line and it corners excellent, just like the Matty Ice build. The difference between the Matty Ice build and this one is almost unnoticeable. What it comes down to is actually the top speed. The Matty Ice build, because of the downforce, it goes up to 155 miles per hour, whereas this build goes to 158. I kind of would say that this one is actually better, but what I've noticed is because of that increase in the top speed, you actually sacrifice quite a bit in the corners. And it felt okay when I was cornering, but the race times were very favorable to the Matty build. Once again though, I didn't even come close to losing, and I think that this Exige is actually one of the meta cars for A tier. I haven't tested it at all before this video, and what I'm finding out is that it's a very strong car in A tier. But let's move on to a different car. This is the E30 BMW coming from Omega Fartboy. Great name, by the way, Omega Fartboy. Had to say it twice. This is actually a decent launch and decent top speed ability. It corners pretty bad as a grip build though. Its turning radius just isn't there, which forces you to drift most of the corners, and when you drift corners you lose speed. I think if you sacrifice the top speed a little bit, you could make a more grippy build that would corner a little bit better, but I'm not sure if that would actually be worth it. And that makes me feel like this E30 BMW is just not meant to be in the A tier meta. So just keep trying with this build. This is certainly not a bad build. It actually felt nice to drive, but you did have to drift a lot of the corners. And the last build that I'm going to bring you today is an Eclipse by Happy Feet 69. Now this one actually has a pretty sluggish launch, but it gets to top speed in a reasonable amount of time. It's got really good top end acceleration and a good top speed stat. Unfortunately, it really falls flat in the corners. Once again, due to a lack of turning radius, which could be helped by a more grippy build. You really have to drift most of the corners, which is fine until someone with an overbuilt Focus RS destroys you in 3 straight races. It's really not that bad of a build, but there are others that are faster. And so for this one, I just recommend maybe fine tuning it a little bit, get it to be a little bit more grippy, drop down the top speed a little bit, because top speed is not super important in A tier. Even the speed races are not super long, and so you don't need the top speed as much. There actually were 2 other A tier builds that were submitted that I didn't get a chance to try. One by Hatsune Miku for an Evo 9, which I don't have unlocked in multiplayer yet, and another by All-Star SZN for a Pista build, which we all know is broken in both A tier and B tier. So I didn't really even try to build that because we know exactly what would happen with that one. It's just a complete meme of a car. But I just wanted to mention both of those guys because they did submit builds for the A tier, and I really appreciate that so much. Alright, the fastest build for this week and for the A tier so far is Matty Ice's Gripped Up Exige. In fact, it's the fastest build even of the cars that I've built. So hats off to Matty Ice. It's a beautiful build that drives very nicely in A-Class, and I'll be adding it to my build spreadsheet because I feel like it's the most well-tested and best all-around build for A-Class so far from the community. Once again, thank you guys all for your submissions. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to submit builds for me to try out. I'm gonna make this a weekly thing, so just keep those builds coming over on militiagamingco.com. Shout out to all the Heat 5 members of the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one. Trigger out.